42 years ago, a young woman vanished right inside her locked apartment from the inside, disappearing without a trace, leaving her family in despair for decades. Authorities suspected the man she lived with, the only person there on the night of the incident, but with no body found and almost no reliable clues, the investigation quickly reached a dead end. Yet through all those years, those who could not accept the silence clung to one question: what really happened after the four mysterious sounds echoed from the bathroom that night? Then one day, when an old piece of evidence was discovered miles away from the scene, it revealed a detail everyone had overlooked, a detail powerful enough to change the entire case and shock everyone who followed it. Before diving into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. On the night of early December 1984, in New York City, the Jackson Heights neighborhood, along Roosevelt Avenue, was still bustling with people, even late at night. With neon signs glowing, and the sound of the number 7 train from the 74th Street station echoing down to the row of old apartment buildings amid the immigrant district. In apartment 4F of this building, 25-year-old Lena Carrington finished her shift at the Queens Library and returned home around 10:45 p.m. Ethan Morales, the man she lived with, was already in the apartment after a long workday. The two exchanged a few short words about Lena coming home late. No significant conflict arose, but it was enough to make the atmosphere feel heavy. Afterward, Lena grabbed a towel, went straight into the bathroom, and locked the door from the inside, as was her nightly habit. Ethan stayed in the living room, noticing the unusual silence, before suddenly hearing 4 hard-to-identify sounds coming from the bathroom in quick succession. First, a light sound like something dropping onto the floor, followed by a short movement sound like footsteps or something being dragged. Then a metallic twisting sound, as if a key was touching some surface, and finally, a soft popping sound coming from the direction of the bathroom window. The sequence happened in a very short time, prompting Ethan to immediately call out to Lena, with no response. After waiting no more than a minute, he decided to force the door open. When the door burst open, the bathroom was completely empty. No Lena, just the window slightly ajar, revealing the space leading to the fire escape. Ethan immediately checked the entire apartment, from the bedroom to the kitchen, and found no trace of Lena leaving by any observable route. He left the apartment, ran down the stairs, checked the hallways on each floor, the trash area behind the building, and the surroundings of the front entrance, but encountered no one matching Lena's build or clothing. No residents in the building reported seeing Lena after she entered the bathroom. Realizing the situation was beyond explanation and initial search efforts yielded nothing, Ethan returned to the apartment and contacted Lena's family to report that she had vanished in just a few minutes after entering the bathroom. The family quickly arrived, checked the entire apartment, hallways, and surrounding areas of the building, and confirmed Lena had no reason or signs indicating she would leave on her own at that time, nor had she taken any essential personal items. When all ordinary possibilities were ruled out, and the silence in the apartment became alarming, the family agreed this was an emergency, and decided to call the police to report Lena missing. The call was transferred to NYPD dispatch late that night, where initial information was logged per procedure, and immediately forwarded to the patrol unit responsible for the Jackson Heights area. Shortly afterward, 2 assigned officers headed to the building on Roosevelt Avenue and approached apartment 4A a short time later. At the scene, they noted the victim was not present in the apartment and took Ethan's initial account again. Lena entered the bathroom, locked the door, and did not reappear after he forced it open due to hearing unusual sounds. The officers recorded the overall condition of the apartment. The living room showed no signs of furniture being disturbed. The front door remained in its standard lock state. The kitchen and bedroom showed no indications the victim had prepared to leave. In the bathroom, they documented the forced door position and the weak lock mechanism that had been impacted from the outside. The bathroom window was slightly open, but there were no obvious signs of prying or clear damage to surrounding surfaces. This prevented the officers from immediately determining it as an entry or exit point for anyone. The apartment as a whole remained in a stable state, with no signs of struggle or rushed movement. Family members stated Lena had not taken important personal items, but this detail was only noted at a basic information level and not yet considered evidence of criminal involvement. Per NYPD procedure in 1984, officers handling short-term absences of adults exercised limited vigilance, so the event was not yet assessed as having clear criminal elements. The initial report was classified as missing adult, circumstances unknown, low priority, due to no signs of violence or forced entry. The two officers established the initial scene perimeter only within apartment 4F, not extending to hallways, fire escapes, or surrounding areas. They noted the need for preliminary interviews with involved parties at the scene, including Ethan and family members, and recorded their arrival times, the last time the victim was seen, and the time the bathroom door was forced. No evidence was collected during this preliminary assessment phase. The officers only prepared the incident report and readied it for transfer to higher authority if new developments arose later. Based on what was gathered at the time of response, the initial responding force made no determination of possible criminal activity and completed basic scene documentation per 1984 procedures. After the patrol officers left the apartment to finalize the initial report, another NYPD team was dispatched to conduct a more detailed scene survey to collect all possible physical data within apartment 4F before the scene condition could be further altered by resident movement. The survey began by re-examining the bathroom, identified as the victim's last known location. The team noted the bathroom door structure, old hinges, simple lock, forced and misaligned to the left, due to strong external force, with the latch bolt broken and cracked at a contact point. The tiled bathroom floor showed no unusual scratches, no standing water or signs of struggle. Items in the room such as soap bottles, spare towels and toothbrush remained in place, with no signs of displacement except the towel Lena had taken with her. Initially was absent from the space and not found anywhere in the apartment during the survey. The bathroom window was examined more closely than in the initial intake assessment. The window frame remained intact, no prying marks, no fresh metal scratches, but the lower sill had a thin layer of dust disturbed in a curved streak pattern, as if lightly contacted by an object or part of a body. The external fire escape could not be directly observed from inside the bathroom, but the team noted the slightly open direction of the window aligned with natural movement if someone had hastily opened it from inside. The team moved on to check the rest of the apartment. The living room showed no disturbed furniture. Sofa, coffee table, and small items remained in stable positions. Table surfaces had no liquid marks, dropped objects or impact signs. The wooden floor had no unfamiliar shoe prints, only Ethan's matching the shoes he was wearing. The bedroom was checked next, noting the bed remained made. Closet showed no signs of rushed opening, and items were not missing per initial descriptions. No luggage or bags of the victim were gone, except for personal items the family had already reported. The kitchen was checked per procedure, with no missing cutlery or unusual use signs. All items remained intact, no cleaning chemical odors or points suggesting temporary concealment. The team continued checking dust accumulation at entry points. At the front door area, the dust layer remained undisturbed, with no signs of sweeping or smudging, indicating the door had seen little use during the event time frame. At the bedroom window area, no notable traces. Specifically at the bathroom window area, the abnormally disturbed dust formed a short sweeping shape, not enough to identify the cause, but noted as one of the rare differences from the apartment's overall condition. The team checked under the window sill, finding a few tiny metal dust particles clinging to the outer tile edge. Consistent with dust types common on fire escapes of old buildings, but insufficient in quantity for tangible evidence. No footprints were detected in the bathroom due to the tile floor not holding clear impressions. Only faint shoe streaks matching Ethan's shoes, with no larger shoe sizes to indicate a third party's presence in the apartment at the time of the disappearance. Investigators noted that the delayed initial processing meant the scene was not sealed promptly, leading to the possibility that small traces on the floor, doorknobs, or hinges had been compromised by multiple people entering and exiting since the report was made. During the survey, the team also noted no unusual dropped objects in the apartment, no glass fragments, metal pieces, or abnormal items that could directly link to the four sounds Ethan described. This made decoding the sounds more difficult, as no matching physical evidence was found. After completing the full apartment inspection, the survey team reached a preliminary conclusion that the scene showed no clear signs of struggle, no direct physical damage beyond the forced bathroom door, and no physical evidence indicating the victim had left via the main door. At the same time, the report emphasized a serious legal shortfall. The bathroom area and exits were not secured promptly in the initial minutes, significantly reducing the chance of recovering fingerprints or other important indirect traces. Recognizing that physical data had nearly reached the limit of what could be exploited, the survey team finalized the apartment 4 scene report and transferred all findings to the unit responsible for the next phase of the investigation. Immediately upon receiving this report, a dedicated team for collecting statements within the building was deployed, focusing on identifying all individuals present between 10:30 and 11:30 p.m. The time frame determined to be directly relevant to Lena Carrington's disappearance. A resident list was compiled from building records, combined with doorman shift notes and oral confirmations from each household. The team prioritized apartments on floors 3, 4, and 5 due to higher likelihood of clearly hearing sounds from the 4F bathroom area. At apartment 3E, a resident reported hearing no cries for help but noted a loud bang shortly after 11 p.m. believed to be the bathroom door being forced per Ethan's account. Another resident on floor 4 confirmed hearing running footsteps in the 4th floor hallway right after that time, but could not identify the source or direction. The resident of 4B reported hearing intermittent light metallic clinks a few minutes before the loud bang. At apartment 5D, a resident said they thought they heard a window or metal object clanging from the direction of the wall below, but since old buildings often produced unclear source noises, they paid no attention. The team expanded to gather information from lower floor units, but found no additional clear reports related to the sounds. Inquiries about unusual activity in the building also yielded no significant results. The incident occurred on a weekday, most residents were home or resting, and no one reported seeing strangers entering or leaving the building during the relevant time frame. However, a second-floor resident reported hearing movement on the rear fire escape stairs, short, intermittent sounds, around just before 11 p.m. This person did not see anyone through the kitchen window due to limited viewing angle, but the information was recorded because it aligned with the 4F bathroom window's access to the fire escape. When asked to pinpoint the exact time, this resident could only estimate between 10:55 and 11:05 p.m., perfectly matching the time frame when Lena was determined to have disappeared. At the front of the building, residents near the main entrance confirmed no one saw Lena leave, nor did they notice any woman with similar features moving in the hallway just before or after the incident. The night shift doorman also provided no additional verifiable data due to limited observation range from the work position and no record of anyone leaving matching the victim's description. Summarizing all statements showed that, while unusual noises were heard in the building, there was no eyewitness who could confirm Lena's direction of movement after entering the bathroom or describe the appearance of any directly related party at the critical moment. The complete absence of direct eyewitnesses forced the team to acknowledge this as a serious weakness in the initial data collection phase, making it impossible to resolve through human testimony the question of how the victim left the building. Before that information vacuum, the focus of the investigation had to shift from witnesses to the physical space, and the team responsible for analyzing exit routes from the building was deployed to scrutinize all entry and exit points. Based on on-site data and resident statements, they aimed to identify the most plausible path that the victim or another individual could have used during the time frame of Lena's disappearance. First, the fire escape at the rear of the building was subjected to detailed evaluation due to its direct connection to the 4F bathroom window. This route consists of a fixed external iron staircase attached to the wall, running from the 5th floor down to the 1st floor. It is old, rusted, and produces metallic sounds when someone moves on it. Examination of the stair treads and handrails revealed displaced dust and oxidation patches at several points, aligning with the horizontal position of the 4th floor bathroom window. On one tread, there was a faint shoe print of a size larger than Ethan's shoe size, though not sharp enough to identify the shoe type or precise direction of movement. No fresh skid marks or tears were found on the metal grating, indicating that whoever used this route did not run hastily or carry a heavy object that would cause strong friction. The analysis team noted that it was entirely possible to exit the building quickly via the fire escape without passing through the main entrance, especially during a period with few observers. Next, the building's main entrance was re-examined to confirm the possibility that the victim or perpetrator left in that direction. The main door is made of thick wood with a protective metal grille, secured by an internal deadbolt, and showed no signs of prying, warping, or misalignment. The night shift doorman confirmed that no one matching the victim's description left the building during the relevant time period. Additional inspection of dust around the hinges and doorknob revealed no fresh streaks or signs of disturbance near the time of Lena's disappearance. This placed the likelihood of the main door being used at a low level. The rear door of the building was examined next. This leads to a narrow alley behind Roosevelt Avenue, less frequented, poorly lit, and without controlled access. However, the rear door can only be opened from the inside and has an automatic spring lock mechanism that snaps shut after closing. Inspection of the lock showed no signs of unusual tampering. The dust layer near the floor area remained undisturbed, with only older shoe prints from earlier times. Based on this information, use of the rear door was possible, but lacked direct supporting evidence. Regarding the roof access, the analysis team noted that the door leading to the roof was locked from the inside with a safety latch bearing an old building seal. The seal was intact, and the hinges showed no fresh scratches, proving that no one had used this route on the night Lena went missing. The specialized team assessed the roof access as having zero probability. Upon completing the review of all exit points, the technical team cross-referenced physical data with timing information and resident statements. The main entrance showed no unusual activity, the rear door lacked supporting data, and roof access was entirely ruled out. In contrast, the fire escape simultaneously met three key criteria: direct connection to the bathroom window location, consistency with statements about unusual sounds, and the presence of a faint shoe print indicating movement during Lena's disappearance window. With all data converging in one direction, the analysis team concluded that the fire escape was the most likely exit route in the incident. After identifying the only plausible movement route, the next step was to accurately reconstruct the sequence of events in time. The team responsible for building the timeline began compiling all time-related data collected from various sources to establish a unified, sufficiently precise timeline as the foundation for all subsequent analysis. This process required anchoring each discrete milestone from the moment Ethan saw Lena return home, when she entered the bathroom, the four unusual sounds recorded, the moment Ethan broke down the door, to when the family was notified and NYPD was contacted. Indirect milestones from residents, such as noises on the fire escape stairs, a loud sound on a lower floor, and the night doorman's observation times at the main entrance, were also incorporated. The analysis team started by fixing the first-time anchor, 10:45 p.m., based on the wall clock in apartment 4F and Ethan's statement about when Lena returned home, corroborated by a downstairs resident who heard the apartment door close around that time. The second milestone was set at 10:50 p.m. when Lena entered the bathroom. This was supported by Ethan's account and an estimate of the short conversation that occurred beforehand. The period from 10:51 p.m. to 10:54 p.m. was identified as when the four unusual sounds occurred. This window was constructed from Ethan's description, cross-checked against a third-floor resident who heard a loud noise around 11 p.m. or a few minutes earlier. Although the resident could not pinpoint each small sound, the timing of the main noise was sufficiently consistent with the sequence Ethan described. The next milestone was 10:55 p.m., when Ethan broke down the bathroom door. This timing was established due to the alignment between Ethan's statement, the loud noise heard by the third-floor resident, and the time required for Ethan to act after calling Lena without response. From 10:55 p.m. to 11:05 p.m. covered the period when Ethan checked the apartment, the fourth-floor hallway, the main entrance area, and the rear alley before returning to the apartment and calling family. This interval was built based on average movement speed within the building and the family's account of when they received the call. The family confirmed they left home immediately and arrived at the building around 11:10 p.m. to 11:12 p.m. While the family was en route, the analysis team inserted additional indirect witness milestones. A second-floor resident heard movement on the fire escape stairs between 10:55 p.m. and 11:05 p.m., coinciding with the time Lena was determined to no longer be in the apartment. The main entrance doorman confirmed seeing no one leave the building from 10:45 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., allowing elimination of the main entrance as a plausible exit route. After the family arrived, rechecking the apartment and calling the police occurred from 11:12 p.m. to 11:20 p.m. The analysis team then locked all milestones into a single timeline, identifying the most critical window as the period of Lena's complete disappearance, 10:51 p.m. to 10:55 p.m., only 4 minutes after she entered the bathroom and before Ethan broke down the door. This brief, decisive interval represented the minimum and maximum time in which an individual could approach Lena in the bathroom, subdue her, open the bathroom window, move her out onto the fire escape, and descend to the ground floor without being seen. The analysis team further determined the time required for an individual to move from the fourth-floor bathroom window to ground level via the fire escape, based on the iron staircase structure and lighting conditions. The conclusion was that average descent time ranged from 25 to 40 seconds. This fit within the period before Ethan left the bathroom after breaking in. The interval from 10:55 p.m. to 11:05 p.m. was noted as the window during which the individual could have fully exited the building area before Ethan checked outside. After synthesis, the official timeline was established as follows. 10:45 p.m., victim returns home. 10:50 p.m., victim enters bathroom. 10:51, 10:54 p.m., 4 unusual sounds. 10:55 p.m., bathroom door broken down. 10:55, 11:05 p.m., window during which victim disappeared from the building. 11:12 p.m., family arrives at apartment. 11:20 p.m., NYPD called this timeline became the sole high-resolution reference for cross-checking all behaviors, movements, and possibilities related to individuals present in the building area from 10:30 p.m. to 11:45 p.m. on the night of the incident. After establishing the timeline as the reference framework, the team responsible for narrowing down individuals who could access the apartment focused on the group capable of entering the bathroom without breaking the door, specifically, those possessing master keys or legitimate access to internal building areas in 1984. The initial list was drawn from building management records and included 4 main groups: building management, maintenance technical staff, cleaning staff, and night shift personnel. The task force collected work schedules for each individual on the day of the event, combined with logs of their presence in the building from sign-in sheets and statements. The building manager was not present at the time of the incident, having left at 6 p.m. and confirmed to be at his private residence with family all night, partially verified through investigative follow-up calls. The evening cleaning staff reported leaving at 9:30 p.m. and not returning, consistent with a resident encountering this person on the ground floor upon departure. The night doorman, considered present throughout, had unrestricted access only to the ground floor and security office, but did not hold keys to technical rooms or apartments. Thus, the task force shifted focus to the maintenance technical staff group, consisting of 3 individuals with broader access. Thomas Avery, plumbing electrical, Douglas Reed, newly hired technician, and Victor Harwood, senior maintenance worker, who possessed a key set opening most internal rooms, including technical areas and shortcuts connected to the escape route. The investigation examined each person's schedule that day. Thomas Avery worked the day shift and left at 5 p.m., with a first-floor witness confirming he locked the utility room and departed. Douglas Reed was assigned to repair the heating system on the second floor from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., then left directly for his residence in Long Island, matching company card swipe data from his prior job. In contrast, Victor Harwood had no fixed schedule on the day of the incident due to the flexible nature of his role. According to the manager, he frequently entered and exited outside standard hours. The night doorman recalled seeing Harwood in the ground floor area around 7:45 p.m., carrying a small toolbox inside, but his departure time was unclear. No official log recorded Harwood leaving after 10 p.m., creating a time gap aligning with the victim's disappearance window. The task force further reviewed each individual's behavioral history in the months prior to the incident. Thomas Avery and Douglas Reed had no negative resident complaints. In contrast, Harwood appeared in 2 informal complaints about unusual appearances on floors outside his work scope in the evenings. Although these were not formally documented, they provided grounds for the investigation to place Harwood in the group requiring close scrutiny. To determine who could access the 4F bathroom by opening the door from outside without forcing it, the task force reviewed the building's master key records. The list showed only 2 individuals were issued master keys, the building manager and Harwood. Since the manager was absent at the time of the incident, Harwood became the only person in the building capable of opening the door without noise or signs of forced entry. The task force also cross-referenced the 3 technicians' behaviors and locations against the established timeline. Avery and Reed were not present in the area during the 10:50 p.m., 11:05 p.m. window, while Harwood could not account for his whereabouts during the critical period. Aggregating data on access rights, work schedules, movement information, and behavioral history enabled the investigation to narrow suspects from all residents and building staff to a small group, with the key condition of accessing the 4F bathroom without breaking the door, causing Victor Harwood to stand out as the individual requiring deeper analysis. The team responsible for expanding the search to areas outside the building conducted a full sweep of positions around the main structure to determine whether the victim or perpetrator moved beyond the 4F apartment and used adjacent areas as an escape route or temporary stop. The first point checked was the rear courtyard, directly connected to the base of the fire escape. This area consisted of a narrow concrete paved yard, old perimeter walls, and an opening to the Roosevelt Avenue rear alley. Search personnel noted a thin dust layer on the ground, with no clear fresh shoe prints, except for faint marks inconclusive as to whether they belonged to residents or another party. Objects in the yard, including old crates, a hand truck, and small containers, showed no signs of displacement or impact, indicating a heavy object was set down or moved during the relevant period. The Roosevelt Avenue rear alley was examined next. This poorly lit area had numerous obstacles, large building trash bins, and a path leading to a centralized dumpster at the end. Search teams moved along the alley's length, using lights to check the ground, wall edges, and items on both sides. Large trash bins were opened and inspected internally, but no items or clothing matching the victim's description were found. Some bags were torn by animals, but no suspicious fabric pieces or objects were noted. Next, the building's basement was inspected per protocol. It contained shared laundry machines, resident storage boxes, and technical rooms. Foot traffic here was extensive and difficult to classify. No signs were found of anyone hiding or moving through the basement between 10:45 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. No unusual objects were left behind, and no pathway from the basement connected to the fire escape, ruling out its use as an exit route. After completing checks near the building, the search team expanded to the 74th Set and Broadway Station subway, the nearest major station and busy transfer point on the 7 train line. Consistent with the hypothesis that the individual may have used the subway to leave the area quickly, the task force contacted MTA night shift staff to confirm passenger traffic from 11 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. One employee reported seeing a woman being assisted up the station stairs by a man. However, the distance was great, lighting poor, and neither the woman's appearance nor match to Lena's description could be confirmed. No surveillance cameras existed at the station in 1984, preventing further verification. The ticket area, platform access and stairs were checked, but yielded no matching physical traces. The search team continued analyzing plausible subway routes. The 7 train runs from Manhattan to Flushing, stopping at numerous stations where the individual could have alighted quickly, but no clear witnesses at other stations reported a woman being assisted or unusual behavior during the relevant time frame. The task force checked each station along the line according to the timeline, but obtained no additional data. Finally, the search team returned to the Roosevelt Avenue rear alley and re-inspected shadowed corners, but still found no decisive physical evidence, such as torn clothing, bloodstains, items belonging to the victim, or drag marks. After completing the entire external search scope, the participating forces concluded that no clear physical evidence existed in the surrounding area to pinpoint the specific movement route of the victim or another individual. However, the absence of evidence did not rule out the possibility that the individual used the fire escape and left the area quickly before any resident could observe, leaving the victim's post-disappearance exit path from the apartment still undetermined based on collected physical data. The team responsible for behavioral analysis conducted a comprehensive review of all data related to the possibility that Lena left the apartment voluntarily, to determine whether the case involved an adult actively choosing to depart before expanding into other directions. First, the team examined all of Lena's financial information for the 3 months prior to the incident, including bank account transactions, credit card activity, and regular expenditures. No unusual transactions were recorded, no large withdrawals, no changes in spending patterns, and no signs that Lena was preparing financially to leave her residence or embark on a sudden trip. Next, the team collected Lena's work schedule at the Queens Library, confirming she worked fixed shifts and had no reported conflicts or internal issues in the recent period. Colleagues described her as reliable and consistent in her attendance, with no signs of instability prior to the event. Lena's movement habits were also reviewed. The investigation confirmed that Lena did not have a habit of traveling far at night and had no personal routes that would lead to leaving the apartment at a late hour. Examination of correspondence and communication status showed no unusual mail, no resignation notices, no notes left for family or friends, and no contact with any organization related to relocation or departure. The landline phone in the apartment had no outgoing calls during the time frame of the incident. Furthermore, no long-distance calls or any secretive communication activity were detected in the preceding week. The investigative team further examined personal activities recorded in Lena's handwritten calendar and desk notes. These notes contained only daily tasks and work plans, with absolutely no content related to preparing to leave the building or exit her current life. The task force then cross-referenced all behavioral data with the established timeline above. In the timeline, the period of Lena's disappearance was pinpointed to within 4 minutes from when she entered the bathroom until Ethan broke down the door. This extremely short window was incompatible with any voluntary action such as preparing to leave, packing belongings, or exiting through the main door without leaving traces. Even in cases where a victim leaves voluntarily without prior notice, it was impossible for Lena to exit the apartment in such a brief time without being seen by anyone or leaving any movement traces. Additionally, data from the area survey and resident statements confirmed no witnesses saw Lena leave the building before 11:30 p.m., further reducing the likelihood that she left voluntarily via one of the main exits. The behavioral analysis team continued to evaluate the possibility that the victim left the apartment voluntarily through the bathroom window and fire escape. However, Lena actively opening a fourth-floor window, stepping out onto the fire escape in the dark, and leaving the building toward the rear alley was behavior inconsistent with her prior behavioral profile, as well as contradictory to the personal characteristics described by family and colleagues. Physical evidence, such as shoe prints on the fire escape, also did not match Lena's shoe size, ruling out the possibility that she moved in that direction herself. When synthesizing all data on finances, work schedule, daily habits, communications, personal profile, and the event timeline, the behavioral analysis team concluded that there was no indication whatsoever that Lena intended to leave the building voluntarily prior to her disappearance, nor was there any reasonable method by which she could have left the apartment in a few minutes without being seen. The hypothesis of victim voluntarily leaving was entirely ruled out, and the absence of any supporting elements for this hypothesis confirmed that this was not a case of voluntary departure, but rather an unexplained disappearance that could not be explained by the victim's personal behavior. The investigative team, after completing the behavioral analysis steps and officially ruling out the hypothesis that the victim left the building voluntarily, shifted to an overall assessment of the data collection process in the initial phase and quickly identified a system of errors, limitations, and information gaps that had created a complete investigative deadlock. The initial crime scene survey was not conducted with timely sealing procedures, causing many potentially valuable physical traces to be erased or contaminated by the movement of residents, family members, and primary police forces before the technical team arrived. Contact surfaces such as doorknobs, window sills, bathroom floor, and other fingerprint-retaining surfaces were no longer in pristine condition, resulting in no legally valuable fingerprints being collected beyond old prints or those belonging to the apartment owner. Potential evidence items, if present in the first few minutes, were neither collected nor fully documented, making in-depth physical comparison impossible. The lack of physical evidence was the single greatest weakness, rendering subsequent analyses of movement routes, methods of approach to the apartment, and third-party involvement unable to achieve the necessary accuracy. Regarding witness data, although the team collecting statements within the building conducted interviews in a timely manner, all statements were indirect in nature. No eyewitness visually observed the victim leaving the bathroom, leaving the apartment, or moving within the building. Noises reported by residents on various floors were vague, with no identifiable source, precise timing, or direct connection to the disappearance. In the fire escape area, the only supporting witness information was a resident on the second floor reporting hearing brief movement, but without direct observation to corroborate it. Therefore, the entire witness portion centered on unformatted sound sequences, lacking images or direct verification, significantly limiting its usefulness. This limitation became even clearer when considering the security surveillance conditions in New York City in 1984. The building had no internal or external camera systems. Public camera systems in the city were virtually non-existent outside critical infrastructure areas. The 74th Cent Broadway station at that time had no MTA cameras, meaning all information related to train routes and stations relied entirely on the memory of on-duty staff, which was very difficult to verify and carried low legal value. The lack of video surveillance cut off all lines of inference regarding exit routes from the area, leaving no evidence to prove or disprove any route beyond speculation. Additionally, although the analysis team had narrowed down individuals with potential key access to the apartment to the maintenance/technical staff group, in which one person, Victor Harwood, stood out more prominently, the data at that time was still insufficient to classify anyone as an official primary suspect. Their work schedules had gaps, but there was no direct evidence proving their presence at apartment 4F during the victim's disappearance window. Informal complaints about Harwood's unusual behavior were not documented in records, rendering them unusable as valid investigative factors. Other technical elements such as shoe prints on the fire escape lacked sufficient clarity, and could not be matched to any specific shoe pattern. When synthesizing all data, the task force recognized that although the timeline precisely identified the disappearance window, there was no physical evidence, action traces, or eyewitness testimony clearly linking to any specific individual. Combined with the absence of a body, no signs of violence in the apartment, and no financial or behavioral evidence indicating prior danger to the victim, the case did not meet the threshold for classifying as a crime under 1984 standards. The suspect list could not be further narrowed due to lack of comparative grounds. All three technical staff lacked official alibis, but also lacked incriminating data, meaning any further NYPD action lacked sufficient legal basis to proceed. Maintaining the case in the active investigation group would require substantial resources, while all current investigative directions had reached dead ends. Therefore, at the end of the review phase, NYPD concluded that the disappearance of Lena Carrington showed no further progress and did not meet the conditions for handling as a case with clear criminal elements. The case file was closed and officially transferred to the Cold Case Division, which holds unresolved cases without feasible investigative leads at the time. After the file was transferred to the Cold Case Division, Lena Carrington's missing person case entered a prolonged period of many years with no actual progress, accurately reflecting the status of a file lacking both physical evidence and witness data. From 1986 through the late 1990s, the file was archived in NYPD storage as an unresolved case without active investigative leads, meaning no dedicated new investigator was assigned for periodic review. During this period, there were no formal requests from the family or court to restart the case, partly due to the lack of new information and partly because the victim's family received no signals indicating any additional data had surfaced in the community or from other agencies. The building where Lena lived itself underwent a management change in the late 1980s, resulting in many internal building documents, including repair notes, personnel lists, and resident complaints, being lost or not fully transferred to the new owner. These documents, which could have supported cross-referencing access history, shift schedules, or unusual activities at the time of Lena's disappearance, no longer existed in retrievable form, making it impossible to supplement indirect data from the building context. During the same period, forensic identification technology in New York City had not yet advanced to the level of processing small or indirect traces remaining in the file. Modern DNA technology was not widely deployed in civilian investigations by the late 1980s and only began limited use in the 1990s. However, even when the technology became available, samples from the Lena crime scene no longer held testable value due to the initial collection conditions. No blood samples, biological traces, fingerprints, or any evidence were properly preserved, so advances in forensics during the 1990s could not be applied for reanalysis. Additionally, with no body, no clear crime traces, and no evidence confirming violent behavior, the Lena case did not fit the reanalysis priorities of that era, which focused on unsolved homicides or assaults with biological traces. Therefore, despite significant developments in forensic technology, Lena's case was not included in the list of files updated because no suitable samples existed. Throughout this time, no new witnesses emerged, no supplemental statements were obtained, and no reports surfaced of recovered items or traces related to the case in the Jackson Heights area or neighboring boroughs. Federal and interstate record systems at the time were not yet synchronized as they would be in later years, severely limiting the ability to connect information across law enforcement agencies. Much of the information related to individuals who once worked in the building was no longer retained in systems after they changed jobs or residences. As a result, all potential search directions were nullified by the lack of foundational data. Throughout the entire 1986-2000 period, the Lena Carrington case file remained static, with no notable updates recorded in the Cold Case Division log. There was no indication that any investigator could develop a new hypothesis based on old data, and no reasonable basis existed to reopen the file amid the comprehensive lack of legal evidence. This situation led to prolonged stagnation, making the case one of many missing persons files frozen in the system, subject only to periodic administrative checks, but receiving no intervention or re-examination from NYPD for nearly 15 years. In 2001, a new detail unexpectedly emerged in Lena Carrington's disappearance case after nearly 2 decades without progress, when a handbag was found near the Queensboro Bridge during routine cleanup. Area sanitation workers discovered a dark brown women's leather bag wedged in the gap between the bridge railing and the wind-blocking concrete section, a location difficult to see from the regular pedestrian path. Because the bag showed signs of age but was not severely deteriorated, the finder turned it over to MTA staff, who then transferred it to NYPD per lost property protocol. Upon inspection, the receiving officers noted personal items inside, including a Queens Public Library card in the name of Lena Carrington, an old bus pass, a small notebook, and a few miscellaneous receipts from months in 1984. All items matched information the family had provided at the time of the missing person report, and the library card code matched archived records from 1984. Confirmation that the handbag belonged to Lena was straightforward, and it was immediately reattached to the case file as the sole supplemental evidence in many years. However, when cross-referencing the discovery location with the 1984 timeline and reasonable movement routes, the task force found no correlation whatsoever. Queensboro Bridge is far from Jackson Heights and does not lie on any logical travel axis from Roosevelt Avenue via any train or road route identified in the 10:50 p.m. to 11:20 p.m. window on the night of the incident. The bridge also had no connection to the #7 train line, the only line considered in the subway departure hypothesis. No 1984 witness statements mentioned seeing Lena or a woman being escorted toward Long Island City or Midtown East, the areas connected to the bridge's end. This prevented the file review team from constructing any plausible scenario linking the handbag to the moment of the victim's disappearance. Additionally, the bag contained no usable forensic evidence. No new fingerprints, no biological traces, no torn fabric or foreign objects inside. The physical condition of the bag only indicated it may have been in the bridge gap for a long time, but the exact placement date could not be determined due to outdoor weathering completely eroding traces. The task force also considered the possibility that the bag was moved to the area years after the disappearance, but there was no way to verify the origin of its appearance at the bridge, as no surveillance cameras in 2001 captured the entire area and no data existed on who might have discarded items within the managed zone. When analyzing the receipts and notes in the small notebook, all dated prior to the disappearance and contained no information suggesting preparation to leave Jackson Heights. No appointment notes, travel plans, or anything unusual that could connect the handbag to any event after the final 3 months of 1984. With no new details arising from the evidence, the task force concluded that although the handbag belonged to Lena, it provided no new investigative direction or ability to reconstruct the victim's movement route. Consequently, although the Cold Case Division officially reopened the file briefly to evaluate the handbag's value, no basis existed to expand the investigation or pursue additional measures. The file was closed for the second time, remaining static, and the appearance of the handbag near Queensboro Bridge was recorded only as a minor element, insufficient to impact the existing investigative framework. In early 2011, the Lena Carrington missing persons case saw a major breakthrough when a group of workers dismantling an abandoned warehouse near Flushing Meadows, Corona Park discovered a sealed metal drum hidden beneath old plywood and decayed debris. The drum was medium-sized, resembling a small barrel, heavily rusted on the surface, but still structurally intact. As the workers moved the drum from its makeshift burial spot for scrap sorting, they noticed strange sounds coming from it and an unusual weight. Suspicion led them to stop work and notify local police. NYPD deployed an on-site response team and decided to open the drum right there in the warehouse yard to document the initial condition of the container. Inside was a severely decomposed human body, reduced mostly to skeleton, with some dried soft tissue remnants positioned in a fetal curl to fit the confined space. At the bottom of the drum were scraps of fabric along with a layer of decayed leaves mixed with industrial dust, indicating the drum had remained in a sealed environment for an extended period. A semi-automatic handgun lay next to the skeleton, heavily rusted but still identifiable by model and serial number. A records check on the serial number quickly confirmed the pistol was registered to Lena Carrington per legal firearm purchase records from the early 1980s. Also inside the drum was a small piece of fabric, rotted and discolored, but retaining its original weave structure. Preliminary on-scene examination by the forensics team noted that the material and weave pattern closely matched common bathroom towels and mats used in apartments constructed during the same era as apartment 4F. The drum's placement in the warehouse indicated it had been concealed in a low-traffic corner behind a row of metal shelving and against the east wall. The warehouse had previously been used to store light industrial materials before being abandoned in the late 1980s. Examiners noted no signs of frequent movement after placement, as the floor beneath the drum showed long-term impression marks and thick dust accumulation around the base edge. No discarded tools or supporting items were found adjacent to the drum, suggesting the person who placed it acted quickly and left minimal traces. After determining the skeleton belonged to an adult female and linking it to the discovery of Lena's gun in the same container, NYPD's cold case unit immediately reopened the case and decided to reactivate the file for modern forensic analysis to establish the identity of the remains, time of death, and possible connections between the newly discovered site and apartment 4F, where the disappearance was reported in 1984. The modern forensics team took custody of all evidence recovered from the metal drum and began the 2011 standard examination process, aiming to confirm the identity of the remains, analyze accompanying evidence, and evaluate links between the warehouse samples and data from Lena Carrington's 1984 missing persons file. The first step was separating and cleaning bone samples for DNA testing. Although nearly 3 decades of decomposition left insufficient soft tissue for extraction, residual marrow in the long bone still provided enough biological material for DNA isolation. After multiple amplification cycles, a DNA profile was generated and compared against reference samples from Lena's relatives in the cold case division system. The comparison showed near-perfect match, confirming the skeleton in the metal drum was Lena Carrington. This shifted the case from unresolved missing person to confirmed deceased, paving the way to assess cause of death and potential criminal involvement. Following identification, the forensics team examined the rusted handgun found with the body. Though severely damaged and inoperable, some metal surfaces retained enough integrity for layered fingerprint sampling. Chemical scanning combined with specific wavelength lighting revealed a faint partial fingerprint on the slide, not sufficient for individual identification, but adequate to determine the handler's sex through microfeature and size analysis. The result indicated a male fingerprint. Comparison with Ethan Morales' fingerprint records from 1984, when he provided prints, showed the print on the gun did not belong to Ethan. This eliminated the possibility that the victim handled or moved the gun after disappearing, and ruled out any hypothesis of the victim voluntarily relocating the firearm in any manner. Next, the team analyzed the small fabric fragment found in the drum. Although degraded and discolored, remaining fibers were sufficient for microscopic examination to determine weave pattern, twist, and fiber composition. Comparison with photographs and material descriptions from apartment 4F in the original file, including bathroom towels, floor mats, and washcloths purchased together from a single supplier in 1982, showed near-complete similarity between the drum fragment and items documented in 1984 bathroom crime scene photos. This strongly indicated the fabric piece in the drum very likely originated from the victim's apartment and was removed along with the body at the time of the incident. The materials analysis team then examined adhesive, paint, and metal dust residues on the drum bottom and bone surfaces to determine the body's exposure environment prior to placement in the drum. Spectroscopic analysis confirmed the presence of industrial adhesive used for reinforcing fire escape grills, and metal handrails in buildings constructed in Queens during the 1960s. Dust and paint chip samples closely matched old paint layers documented in the fire escape areas of the building where Lena lived, per 1984 scene survey records. While this did not prove a specific transport route, it strengthened the likelihood that the body had contact with metal structures or surfaces of the building before being taken to the warehouse. Precipitation analysis inside the drum also indicated prolonged dry, sealed conditions consistent with the body being placed in the drum shortly after disappearance and stored long-term at the warehouse with minimal subsequent movement. Synthesizing all modern forensic data, DNA-confirmed identity, male fingerprint not matching relatives or cohabitants, fabric matching 4F bathroom materials, and adhesive paint traces. Matching the old building samples, the forensics team reached a clear conclusion. Lena Carrington's remains could not have left the apartment voluntarily, nor could she have traveled to the warehouse under her own direction or initiative. The matching evidence, surface traces, and DNA proved external intervention by a third party. The official conclusion was transmitted to the cold case unit. Lena Carrington's death bore indicators of criminal homicide, not voluntary disappearance, followed by accidental death. This was the first scientific confirmation establishing grounds to redirect the entire case toward investigating intentional criminal conduct by one or more parties directly connected to the 1984 disappearance. The cold case unit crime scene analysis team, after receiving the complete new forensic data, reconstructed the 1984 scene using 2012 simulation tools to determine the most plausible sequence of actions leading to Lena Carrington's disappearance from the 4F bathroom in just a few minutes. The first step was to recreate the 4 sounds Ethan described on the night of the incident, as these were the only recorded indicators of movement inside the apartment before the bathroom door was forced. The analysis team used an acoustic simulation system to rebuild the 1,984 recorded bathroom dimensions and tested various impact types that could produce similar sounds. The first sound, described as something falling to the floor, was determined to possibly result from a light object, such as a plastic bottle or towel dropping, or from the victim being lightly pushed against a hard surface. It had low amplitude, matching Ethan's description of a brief, non-sharp noise. The second sound, described as very light footsteps or dragging, corresponded in simulation to a foot sliding lightly on tile or a body part being pulled along the floor without loud impact. The third sound, metallic scrapings turning, was highly likely from contact with the metal surface of the window or a metal handle in that area. Simulation showed that quickly unlatching or attempting to raise the window frame produced a very similar light metallic clink. The fourth sound, a short snap, was consistent with the window being rapidly opened or closed, or an object striking the metal window sill frame. When sequenced together, the 4 sounds fully aligned with 2 entities in the bathroom, one active and one restrained, or one actor rapidly manipulating objects in the room in a very short time. After acoustic simulation, the team used a 3D model based on 4F apartment dimensions to reconstruct the most feasible perpetrator movement path. Milestone 1. Lena's position near the sink immediately after closing the bathroom door. Milestone 2. Perpetrator entry into the bathroom via master's technical key or non-destructive unlocking method. Milestone 3. Subduing the victim in the confined space without generating loud, easily audible noise to adjacent apartments. Time simulation confirmed that from initial door opening to victim incapacitation required at most 10 to 15 seconds. Milestone 4. Perpetrator opening the bathroom window. Window height simulation showed fully raising it could produce the light snap sound Ethan heard as the fourth noise. Milestone 5. Moving the victim through the window onto the fire escape. Based on sill height, fire escape structure, and distance from wall to stairs, the model showed pulling or carrying the victim through the window in the narrow space could be accomplished in 15 to 25 seconds if the perpetrator was familiar with the apartment layout and fire escape placement. Milestone 6. descending the fire escape from floor 4 to ground level. Examination of the 1984 building's iron stair structure indicated approximately 7-10 seconds per floor at a brisk but non-running pace. Total descent time from floor 4 to ground was 25-40 seconds. Combining the full action sequence into a timeline, the analysis team confirmed the perpetrator could have approached Lena between 10:51 p.m. and 10:52 p.m., subdued and removed her via the fire escape in under 60 seconds, and left the area before Ethan forced the bathroom door. This alignment had high fidelity with the original timeline, demonstrating the reconstruction model did not contradict evidence collected at the time of the incident. Additionally, the simulation team evaluated the possibility of Lena voluntarily opening the window and leaving the apartment. Results showed that, based on her documented height and weight, she would have struggled to climb out without creating significantly louder noise than Ethan described. Furthermore, no rational behavioral motive existed for Lena to perform such an action alone in such a short time frame. Another key point incorporated was the non-forced initial bathroom door opening. The door was only forced from outside after Ethan's action, proving it had not been broken prior to that moment. Thus, the first opening must have been achieved via technical key or silent unlocking method, behavior requiring familiarity with the building's installed lock hardware. Simulation of master key entry to the bathroom door matched the available timeline gap. In contrast, simulation of improvised tool unlocking produced much louder noise, easily audible to residents, inconsistent with witness statements. When integrating all elements, acoustic simulation, 3D movement model, action timing, and building structure, the conclusion was the perpetrator must have been someone familiar with the building who had authorized access to technical areas, including keys capable of opening the bathroom door from outside. No model fit a scenario involving an unfamiliar stranger. The 2012 data-driven scene reconstruction confirmed Lena Carrington's disappearance could only have been carried out by a single individual with technical access, detailed building knowledge, and sufficient time to exit undetected by any witnesses. The suspect analysis team began narrowing the list based on all newly acquired 2012 forensic data, combined with the roster of individuals who held technical keys or special internal access to the building in 1984. The original list included three main groups: building management, maintenance technical staff, and janitorial staff, but only 2 individuals had been issued master keys capable of opening 4F's bathroom door from outside: the building manager at the time and long-term maintenance technician Victor Harwood. The investigation team cross-referenced each candidate against forensic data, timeline, and physical evidence to eliminate mismatches. First, the building manager was re-examined. 1984 archived records showed he left the building at 6 p.m. and remained at his home in Bedford-Stuyvesant all evening, corroborated by family statements and landline phone records. No 2012 forensic elements linked him to the evidence, no fingerprint match with the faint print on the gun, no history of access to the warehouse where the drum was found, and his personal file showed no unusual behavior before or after the disappearance. He was therefore excluded. Next were the 2 additional maintenance technical staff besides Harwood, Thomas Avery and Douglas Reed. Avery's movement timeline showed he left the building at 5 p.m. and was at his second job in Brooklyn by 7 p.m., confirmed by time clock records. He had no opportunity to return to Jackson Heights during Lena's disappearance window. No forensic evidence connected Avery to the remains or warehouse, no matching fingerprints, no work history near Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, and he lacked high-level keys. Avery was excluded. For Douglas Reed, 1984 records showed he worked only until 9 p.m. on 4/2, then drove straight to Long Island in his personal vehicle. Queens Midtown Bridge toll receipts that year placed him leaving Queens eastward within the time frame matching his statement. Reed had no access to technical areas and no master key, so he could not have opened the bathroom door without forcing it. 2012 forensics showed no matches involving Reed, no fingerprint correspondence, and no evidence he worked at or near the warehouse. Reed was fully excluded. The investigation then reviewed the janitorial staff. None held technical keys or access to mechanical areas. None remained in the building after 9:30 p.m. on the night of the incident. Their work schedules showed no access to internal routes or ability to enter 4-4 via the exterior door. No forensic evidence linked this group. The janitorial staff was excluded from suspicion. After eliminating all remaining candidates, the team focused on the sole individual lacking a clear alibi, possessing bathroom 4F access via key, and showing irregular building behavior. Victor Harwood. When cross-referenced with forensic data, Harwood matched every criterion. The fingerprint on the gun had size and structural characteristics consistent with a large male hand, aligning with Harwood's personnel records. The fabric fragment in the drum, matching 4F bathroom materials, supported the theory that the victim's body was moved directly from the apartment. Adhesive and paint traces matched types used for fire escape repairs, a task Harwood performed repeatedly between 1982 and 1984, creating an indirect but significant link between the crime and his professional skills. The 1984 timeline could not rule out Harwood's presence in the building during Lena's disappearance window. No witness saw him leave before 10:50 p.m., and no log recorded his departure from the area. The 3-hour gap from 7:45 p.m. to the disappearance provided ample time to access the apartment and remove the victim unobserved. When overlaid with the above simulations, Harwood was the only person capable of silent entry, controlled restraint without struggle marks, proper window operation, and proficient fire escape use. The team also examined Harwood's behavioral history. Prior reports of his unexplained appearances on floors outside his assigned duties, plus resident complaints about late-night wandering in the building, formed a consistent risk pattern aligning with an offender profile requiring detailed observation of resident habits and precise knowledge of building movement schedules. Combining all data, the team conclusively narrowed suspicion to Harwood as the sole remaining suspect after full elimination of all other individuals present in or connected to the building area in 1984. No other person simultaneously satisfied the 4 criteria: access rights, building familiarity, lack of clear alibi, and forensic compatibility. At the conclusion of this phase, the Cold Case Unit officially designated Victor Harwood as the primary suspect in the Lena Carrington case, based on the continuous and consistent chain of evidence from 1984 to 2012. After officially establishing Victor Harwood as the primary suspect, the Cold Case Unit moved to the next step, tracking the subject's whereabouts after nearly 3 decades off the grid. This required compiling multiple federal and state data sources, starting with basic databases such as tax records, DMV records, and Social Security information, to determine whether Harwood was still alive, where he was residing, and whether he was using a new identity. The analysis team accessed federal tax records from 1985 onward and found that Harwood had not filed any tax returns since 1986, nor did he appear in employment records in New York or neighboring states for many years afterward. This aligned with his abrupt departure from the workplace building without leaving forwarding information. However, a fragmented trail emerged in Social Security records, showing an account with a matching birth date, though under a different name, that had sporadic activity starting in the late 1990s in the New Jersey area. The name recorded in the new file was Gerald Hawkins, born in 1953, registered for part-time labor in jobs that did not require deep background checks, such as small machinery repair and warehouse maintenance. However, the Social Security number used had the last 2 digits matching those previously belonging to Victor Harwood, a red flag for investigators suggesting the subject was using a fraudulently registered identity based on the original Social Security number. The investigation team continued by querying New Jersey DMV records, which showed a driver's license issued to Gerald Hawkins in 1998 in Newark. When comparing the license photo with Harwood's personnel file photo from the building in 1984, the trace team noted numerous clear similarities: facial bone structure, eyebrow angle, nose bridge line, and wrinkle placement around the eyes. All matched the original photo, with differences attributable only to age and changes in facial hair. Facial recognition algorithms, used in the 2011-2012 period, also returned high match scores, supporting the conclusion that Gerald Hawkins was in fact Victor Harwood. Expanding the search further, the task force accessed residency data stored in DMV and Newark rental records. The information showed Harwood had lived in a low-cost apartment complex in the South Ironbound area since 1999, then moved to a ground-floor unit in the same area in 2007. The reason for the move was unclear, but there were no records of job changes or legal events tied to the relocation. Rental records listed him as living alone, with no dependents or co-tenants. The investigation team also reviewed available medical history, noting that Harwood had visited a community clinic in Newark in 2005 for a minor injury, indirectly confirming he was still alive and using the new identity at least by that time. The trace team continued cross-referencing identifying features from old records with updated information, such as height, weight, and notes about a scar previously recorded in the building's employee file. According to 1984 records, Harwood had a scar approximately 3 centimeters long on his right wrist, a rare and distinctive detail. When investigators compared this with the 2005 medical record under Gerald Hawkins, they found a note about a similar scar in nearly the exact location and size. This was a strong corroborating factor, reinforcing that the two identities belonged to the same person. Employment-related data in New Jersey tax records also showed Gerald Hawkins working temporary jobs at a private warehouse from 1996 to 1998. The investigation team traced the warehouse address and confirmed it was not far from the Flushing Meadows, Corona Park area where the body was discovered. This was a crucial piece linking Harwood to the vicinity where the body was hidden, although not direct proof of guilt. In the final review steps of the tracing phase, the task force compiled all identifying data to rule out mistaken identity or coincidence with someone sharing a name or details. The collection of portraits, medical records, personnel files, DMV data, and facial feature analysis unanimously confirmed Gerald Hawkins as Victor Harwood. The trace report concluded that the subject had left New York after the 1984 incident, used an invalid new identity, and lived discreetly among the working-class community in Newark for over 2 decades without making large financial transactions or attracting law enforcement attention. With all data cross-checked and verified, the trace team completed the step of locating Harwood's current residence and passed this information to the cold case unit as the basis for the next phase of the investigation. Immediately after determining Victor Harwood's current residence in the South Ironbound area of Newark, the cold case unit obtained a search warrant from a New Jersey court based on the chain of identification data and previously established forensic links. Once the warrant was approved, the task force coordinated with Newark police to approach the ground floor apartment where Harwood was living, a small unit in a low-rent building with simple furnishings and no signs of cohabitants. The search began with checking personal storage areas and kitchen cabinets, where the team discovered an old toolbox covered in thick dust but unlocked. Inside were a set of metal key blanks, some already cut or filed, and one blank matching the shape of keys used by the building where Lena lived in the early 1980s. Examiners brought comparison samples from NYPD archived files and confirmed that the shape, grooves, and metal composition of one blank in the box matched the master technician key issued for the building in 1984. A significant detail since such keys were only distributed to management and maintenance technicians. This matching key blank was immediately seized as evidence. Continuing the search, the team moved to the bedroom area, where an old metal cabinet with a loose lock and no serious security was located. Inside, they found a cardboard box containing various repair-related materials, old paint cans, industrial glue bottles, and notably a tube of metal reinforcing adhesive, whose brand and composition matched the glue analyzed from the metal drum containing Lena's body and from the building's fire escape in 1984. Preliminary examination confirmed a high degree of similarity between the adhesive sample at Harwood's current apartment and samples from the evidence, strengthening the hypothesis that the user of this adhesive was the same person who operated at the crime scene building. Alongside the adhesive, a paint can with dried residue around the rim was collected for comparison. Subsequent analysis showed the paint in the can matched characteristics of the paint found on the metal drum surface and on parts of the victim's remains, indicating the same material had been used at two different times, both at the building and in the warehouse context. This was rare and legally valuable physical evidence. The search team continued examining papers and personal documents found in desk drawers and shelves. Among them was a small notebook. The first page lacked a clear date, but contained scattered notes related to temporary work locations. Some pages referenced the address of an industrial warehouse near Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, the same location where the metal drum containing the body was found. Entries such as repair shelf, east side, weld back face, old warehouse, and symbols describing metal shelf layouts were interpreted as internal descriptions of the warehouse during the late 1990s when Harwood worked there. Although not directly describing criminal acts, the connection between Harwood and the body disposal site was important corroborating evidence. In the next phase, examiners collected fingerprints from various surfaces in the apartment, especially the toolbox, paint can, and notebook. Harwood's fingerprints, collected live during the search, were then compared to the partial print found on Lena's gun inside the metal drum. Although the print on the gun was faded and degraded over time, remaining ridge characteristics were sufficient for modern biometric comparison. Results showed major ridge flows and several branching minutiae matching Harwood's at a legally significant level, ruling out coincidence and confirming the print belonged to him. This match, combined with Harwood having no lawful reason to handle the victim's gun, formed the strongest direct evidence linking him to the case's most critical piece of physical evidence. To further strengthen the connection to the metal drum, the team extended the search to the warehouse where he had kept old repair materials. There, they found a small box containing welding supplies and scrap metal pieces, some showing burn marks and oxidation, similar to the welded seams of the drum discovered in 2011. Preliminary analysis confirmed similarities in metal structure, weld compound composition, and manual welding style, suggesting the welder's skill level matched Harwood's demonstrated abilities in his old building maintenance records. With all evidence compiled, matching building key blanks, adhesive, and paint, consistent with both the old crime scene and the drum, warehouse notes directly tied to the body discovery site, and Harwood's fingerprint matching the remnant on the victim's gun, the investigation team determined they had sufficient solid legal grounds to arrest Victor Harwood as the primary suspect in Lena Carrington's death. Immediately after collecting all decisive evidence from the search of Victor Harwood's apartment, the cold case unit coordinated with Newark police to bring Harwood to headquarters for questioning as the primary suspect. In the initial interrogation, Harwood denied any involvement in Lena Carrington's disappearance, claiming he was not at the building on the night in 1984 and knew nothing about the gun or metal drum. However, as investigators presented the evidence one by one, the matching technician key blanks from the building, adhesive and paint, consistent with both the fire escape and the drum, and the notebook referencing the warehouse where the body was found, Harwood began showing inconsistencies in his statements. He could not explain the origin of the key blanks, could not account for having matching welding and paint materials in his possession, and especially could not provide a reasonable explanation for his fingerprint appearing on Lena's gun. The contradictions became evident when investigators contrasted Harwood's presence at the building in 1984, his subsequent disappearance from records, and his long-term life under a different identity. Although Harwood continued to deny involvement, the inconsistent statements and inability to explain the evidence caused the interrogation report to be forwarded directly to the prosecutor handling cold cases, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, after receiving the compiled file from NYPD, prepared an indictment based on the chain of forensic and physical evidence. The indictment, clearly specified 3 charges: kidnapping, based on the victim being removed from her apartment without consent; murder based on the combination of the concealed body crime scene evidence and forensic analyses proving the victim did not die of natural causes; and concealment of human remains, reinforced by the body being placed in a metal drum and hidden in a warehouse for many years. The reconstructed timeline from 10:50 p.m. to 10:55 p.m. on the night of the incident was presented as foundational evidence, indicating the window during which the perpetrator could have accessed, subdued and removed the victim from the apartment. The 2012 forensic findings, including DNA confirming identity, male fingerprint matching Harwood, matching adhesive paint materials from the fire escape and drum, and fabric fragments consistent with bathroom materials, were included in the indictment as the core scientific argument. During the trial in Manhattan District Court, the prosecution presented the information chronologically, beginning with the 1984 disappearance, investigative errors that led to the case being closed, the 2011 body discovery, and the full 2012 forensic reconstruction. Forensic experts testified to explain how data from the old and new scenes were matched, the perpetrator's likely movement pattern, and the compatibility between evidence from the drum and remaining samples at apartment 4F. Cold case unit investigators also presented the tracing process of Harwood through Social Security and DMV records, clarifying how the suspect used a false identity for years to evade authorities. The defense attempted to argue that the evidence was collected too far removed from the time of the crime and that no direct eyewitness saw Harwood in apartment 4F on the night Lena disappeared. However, the prosecution countered by presenting the matches in key blanks, adhesive paint materials, and fingerprints, emphasizing that these elements could not coincidentally appear in Harwood's possession if he were unrelated to removing the body from the apartment. Additionally, the argument that the victim left voluntarily was completely refuted by the timeline and forensic analysis, showing Lena could not have left the apartment willingly or independently in any way. After several days of trial and deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all charged counts. Based on the severity of the conduct, the nearly 3-decade concealment of the body, and evidence proving intentional action, the court sentenced Victor Harwood to life imprisonment without the possibility of early parole. With this verdict, the investigation that began in 1984 was fully closed, connecting every link from the moment Lena entered the bathroom, her disappearance within minutes, NYPD's initial response, errors leading to the case closure, the 2011 body discovery, and the 2012 forensic reconstruction into a complete logical chain. The sentence concluded a nearly 30-year cold case, providing official resolution to one of the most complex cold cases in the Queens area and offering a full picture of the entire investigative process from the victim's disappearance to the perpetrator being brought to justice. The story of Lena Carrington's disappearance and death, from 1984 until the case was solved in 2012, highlights an important reality in modern American life: gaps in initial investigative procedures, limitations of old-era surveillance technology, and how a complex urban community like New York can become an environment where a crime remains hidden for nearly 3 decades. NYPD's failure to promptly seal the scene, resulting in lost physical evidence in apartment 4F, serves as a stark reminder that the first minutes of an investigation can determine the fate of an entire case. This is not merely a past procedural error, it reminds today's public that when something unusual occurs, preserving the scene and providing detailed reports is extremely important. Additionally, the fact that Lena's body remained hidden in a metal drum near Flushing Meadows, Corona Park for nearly 30 years without discovery also illustrates the vulnerability of large public spaces in American cities. Today, although surveillance camera systems and security sensors have advanced significantly, citizens still need to remain vigilant and report any anomalies in their areas. Sometimes a single small observation can change the entire course of an investigation. Harwood's ability to live under a false identity for 2 decades in Newark, performing simple jobs without drawing attention, also reflects a common aspect of American society: dangerous individuals can sometimes blend perfectly into everyday life. The practical lesson here is not to fear everyone around you, but to value observation and build strong community relationships, which can help identify unusual behavior earlier. Finally, solving the case through modern forensics reminds us that truth can be hidden for a long time, but is difficult to erase completely. Technology advances, data is stored better, and justice today has far more powerful tools to overcome past mistakes. Lena's story shows that no matter how long it takes, persistence, technological progress, and broad data connectivity can still bring the truth to light. If you are interested in cold cases that span decades like Lena Carrington's story, please hit subscribe so you don't miss the next in-depth analyses. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video, where we continue the journey to seek justice for cases that seem destined to be forgotten.